Welcome to this week's chapter of The Next Chapter. I'm your host, Amazon bestselling author Fred Hughes. And before we get on into the show, this show is supported by Biz TV, both on YouTube and on podcast. If you like the show, please give us a like and also follow Biz TV on YouTube. There are a lot of other shows on the network on a variety of different subjects. There's a lot of economic information that the channel puts out from some really smart people that tell you what's going on with the economy and how to invest your money. There are a variety of other shows out on the channel as well. So check Biz TV YouTube out and follow and subscribe and follow it, and you'll find my shows on there and a lot of other things you like to watch. We didn't have a show last week because I was out of pocket. I was attending an authors convention. I went to LibertyCon 37, which is a writers convention, a writer fan convention held in Chattanooga, Tennessee every year. Very small convention, and had a blast interacting with authors, interacting with fans. It's humorous. I told the wife that I wasn't sure if I was going to do another LibertyCon after this year. This is the second show, the second convention I did, or LibertyCon convention I did, and the first year I was there, I was a very new author and didn't understand how things worked, and I also didn't have very many books out. And this year it was like totally, I was overwhelmed with the number of fans and other authors that came up to me and wanted to interact. And they can't be asking me my advice about writing. I can't believe that. But it was interacting with me, fans telling me how much they liked my books. So it was a really fun time. So, and while I was there, I talked on several panels, and one of the things that came up in one of the panels, we were talking about the next two books that I'm in. Chris Kennedy Publishing did a Chris Kennedy Publishing Year Ahead, and the cover of my next book, which comes out on July the 19th, Prince Imperator, there was the cover reveal for that book. And so here it is, Prince Imperator. It's the 9th book in the Prince of Britannia series that I wrote. It's my core series. And it will be the last book in this story arc. The universe isn't going to end. The Empire of Britannia, there will be more stories in it, but this will be the last book in this story arc. And we find out what the principal character, who is now Emperor Hazard, what he does and how he fights a new war. Like I said, that's July the 19th. I'm already writing the follow-up series, which is Scions of Britannia, and the first book in that series will be out in October. In the meantime, I also have, there's another book that's coming out, and it actually comes out the week before Prince Imperator, and that's a anthology called Bureau 42. It's written in Chris Kennedy and Mark Wandry's Four Horsemen universe. It's specifically by a sub-series called the Peacemaker series, and Kevin Eikenberry and Maya Cleave put this series of short stories together, and I was asked to write and submit a short story for it. And before this, I was not a 4HU writer. I'd never written a book in that universe, and didn't think it was necessarily in my wheelhouse. I prefer to work in my own universes. But Kevin Eikenberry was very persuasive. he created the Peacemakers, and he was running the anthology, and he convinced me to write the short story. And I said, okay, fine. So as you can see on there, Bureau 42, and it lists, like most anthologies, I want to say there's 12 authors, 12 short stories written by 12 different authors, and you can't put all those names on the cover, and I'm honored that my name is the first name listed on the cover of the book, Fred Hughes. Right after that is Marisa Wolf, who happens to be this week's guest for the show. Not necessarily the reason why I invited her on the show with this book coming out. Invited her for other reasons that we'll get to. But Marisa Wolf wrote a story in this anthology. And that brings up one of the things I want to emphasize in this part of the opening segment. And we're going to talk to Marisa about it, about how she got going in the business. She was fortunate enough to be asked by people to write short stories for anthologies. And she did. Some of them were accepted, some of them were not. One of the things we've talked about in the past is, you can't, if you want to be a writer, you can't be dejected because a short story gets rejected. You write a short story and they don't like it. There can be a multitude of reasons why your story is rejected. A lot of the times it may be an outstanding story. It might be entertaining, but it doesn't fit the flow or the theme of the anthology. I mean, you might have thought it did, and it might actually, but the editor who's putting the stories together usually wants to sequence stories that have similar themes, and your short story just doesn't fit. Now, if you're lucky, depending on the publisher, they will tell you, no, we're not sending the short story back to you. It's too good. We want to hold on to it and put it in another anthology that's coming up. If it's not, then the short story gets sent back to you, and you take their recommendations, because most people running anthologies are going to say, this is what was wrong, or this is what, and you have the opportunity to fix it and then submit it to somebody else. Because until you sign the contract and they say, you're signing a contract so that this short story will be in this anthology. Until you do that, that short story is still yours. So if they don't pick it up and they send it back to you, then you can shop that short story around for other people. How do you get in anthologies? How do you know that publishers are looking for short stories? Go to their websites. It doesn't matter whether it's Bain or Tor. I don't think that the really big ones do it, but Bain and Tor on their websites will announce that they're looking for open calls on anthology. All the smaller publishers, Chris Kennedy, Three Ravens, Raconteur Press, Victory. I mean, all of the smaller publishers, if you go to their websites, and if you're serious about being an author, you should already have them in your favorites on your browser so that you can just go to them. There will be a section there for open call for stories. And as we talked about before, open it up, see what the open call says, see what they're looking for, and then follow the rules for submitting the story exactly. The other thing is, if you get asked, you might get asked to write a short story. The correct answer, just like in the original Ghostbusters, if you're asked if you were a god, you say yes. If you were asked to write a short story for an anthology, the answer is yes. Because you can always come back and say no, I'm overloaded, or it's not in my wheelhouse, or whatever. But your initial answer is always yes. The same with, if you're lucky enough, and Marisa, the Bain book that she'll talk about when we bring her on is, that was the first book she'd ever written by herself. Everything else she'd ever written was either a short story in an anthology or a book that she co-wrote with someone else. And she's co-written with some incredible authors that have, and she'll explain how she learned something from each and every one of them. But she was asked to co-write the book, and she said yes, and she did that. And finally, I'll let her tell the story. Because of all these books, she's actually in more books than I am, and I've written, by the end of July, I'll have 12 novels and one anthology out. She has more out than I do. But she got noticed, and someone asked her, what can you give me? I need a short story, I need a opening paragraph and an outline. And all of a sudden, she's writing for a trade pub. So, after the break, Marisa Wolf, talk about writing. I'm Fred Hughes, and this is the next chapter. Welcome back from the break. As advertised, I'm pleased and ecstatic to welcome Marisa Wolf, well-known science fiction, fantasy, she writes a little bit of everything. Marisa Wolf, and there she is. I'll bring up that Marisa, and she may talk about her experiences, but Marisa and I just saw each other at LibertyCon this past week, and both of us, I think, had a great time. It's always fun to see the fans and talk about our stuff, because one thing authors love to do is talk about their stuff.
Yes, accurate. And interact with fellow nerds. That's pretty great.
Yeah, that's very so. Marisa Wolf, so let's talk about recent accomplishments for you. I mean, notably, your Bain book.
Oh, yeah. Yes, it is. It is right behind me. So I'm actually at my... Is it?
Yeah, there you go.
I am actually... Yeah, at my best friend's house right now, the fabulous Casey Izell. Those are her books behind me. And she was like, wait, you need to have your book behind you. So Beyond Enemies is my very first, it's my solo debut novel. So my very first novel I wrote all by myself. And my first traditionally published novel. So came from Bain Books this past February. And do you want me to talk about the book itself, Fred?
Well, if you want to, you're the guest. You can talk about what you want.
Do whatever I want. I love getting to do whatever I want. So Beyond Enemies is the age-old story of a girl and her tank, the huge. So really
so
the girl
done.
And the AI.
I mean,
I know everyone knows the story. So it's really the girl and the AI that grew in her head. So Talon and Bee are part of the Artificial Intelligence Corps, which is an elite, and sometimes they call it elite unit. And that's really how in this universe they solve the problem of how do you train an AI that killing these people is okay, but don't kill those people, though. We can't just kill people willy-nilly. It's only targets. And it turns out you do it by growing them partially in a person's head. And then you've got some built-in morality, and then you train them for a very long time before sending them out into the universe. So Talon and Bee have been paired for a while. They have been very successful in their job as a tank. And then with no warning, they are banished to the hind end of the galaxy, to a non-active front. They have no idea why, because they've been very good at their jobs. But then they find that the war that they thought they've been fighting is not at all the war that they're in, and they need to decide what to do about that. So are we going to uphold the status quo and just keep on keeping on, or are we going to risk burning down everything we've ever known? And at the end of the day, they're a tank, so they have a preference.
So
that's the book.
First book with Bain, writing for a traditional publisher.
Yep.
How did you, I don't want to use the word make, but how did that come about?
Yeah. How did I make it?
Because we have people who watch the show who are aspiring writers, and a lot of them, you know as well as I do, a lot of them have these desires to see their books on the shelf at Barnes and Noble. And you are there now, so you're like a role model for them. How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, work and luck, right? Like those are really the two big circumstances. So I got into being published through a small independent press. It's where Fred and I met. Chris Kennedy Publishing. They are incredible. Chris is incredible. And so for several years, anytime somebody said, "Hey, do you want to write a story for this anthology?" or "Hey, do you want to work on this project with me?" I said, "Yes, yes, 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 absolutely yes." And then made sure that I could deliver on that promise. So say yes to opportunities if you can do them, because hitting your deadlines is just as important as saying yes and then turn in a really good quality product. I did my best to learn from the incredibly talented people around me. So I feel like every story I wrote, I leveled up. And then I had the opportunity, I had to send a writing sample, and thankfully I had one, to have the opportunity to write a story for Michael Z. Williamson in one of his Freehold series anthologies, Freehold Resistance. And it was incredible. And I was able to work with a really great friend of mine, Jamie Ibsen, who's an incredible editor, who looked at my story first and was able to say, "You ended your story right when it got interesting." And he was exactly right. So I rewrote the story. And so when I sent it in to Mike, he was like, "This is one of the best first drafts I've ever seen." And I was like, "Well, fun fact, it's not a first draft." So that probably helps. And also used my resources, and a friend of mine helped pinpoint where I was missing it. But that was, hitting my deadline, taking feedback from a very thoughtful editor, and then turning in a quality product. And so then I think I was sort of on the radar. I had another opportunity to be in another anthology, and I was not yet ready. And so I was pulled off that list, and I was like, you know what? That is cool. That is fair. I'm going to keep working. I'm going to keep doing things. And so my next two short stories that went in front of Bain, went in front of Tony Weisskopf, who is the brilliant and amazing publisher and editor for Bain. She saw those stories and I think could see the work I was putting in and the leveling up that I was doing, hopefully. And we were at a convention together. And at that convention, we were talking about other things because Tony is also, like us, a nerd and loves the sci-fi fantasy world. So we were talking about all kinds of things. And then towards the end of the conversation, she said, "Okay, so your last two stories, they were really good. What are you thinking of working on next?" And I was like, "Oh crap. Oh crap." There's not prepared. But we're
Didn't
authors, so
have
we
the
always
pitch
have
ready.
8,000 ideas in our head, right? And so I said to her, "Well, actually, this short story I did for this incredible anthology called Chicks and Tank Tops, I wrote this story about this chick Talon and the AI bee that lived in her head, and then I passed in the story, and then they would not stop talking, so they just kept present in my brain. And so I was telling her about that and what I thought happened afterwards, and she said, "Huh, all right, send me your first chapter and an outline. I want to look at it." Um, and I immediately freaked out, but fully internally. I think I held it together externally. And then I took my time to make sure I could send her the best first chapter and outline I was capable of. And they bought it. So like to sum up my story, it is say yes to opportunities as long as you are sure you can meet those deadlines, take feedback, work on your craft and level up, keep saying yes. So you keep leveling up. And then always be ready to talk about the ideas lingering in your brain when somebody incredible asks about them. So,
Well, and that's important, and I've talked about it with the people who watch and the aspiring writers about taking the opportunities that come forward, and we're coming up on the break here in a minute, but I wanted to start the conversation that there's a book coming out with a short story that you have in it that's coming
yes.
up. Bureau 42 comes out. Actually, I think it
Next
comes
month,
out because of
2
the way we
weeks.
tape the show. It comes out the
Yeah.
day after we put this up, and here it is, Bureau 42,
Perfect.
and right
Look at
there the
that. Look at our
second.
names.
Yeah, well, yeah, I was gonna. I've already punched this book because I have a short story in it, and I'm not going to go back into how I ended up with a short story in this, but Marisa has a short story in this, and she has a lot of experience writing in the 4HU. So it was natural that she write a story, and oh, by the way, because she's a major published author, so she gets pretty high billing in the storyline. So After the break, we're going to come back and talk to Marisa some more about what she has coming up. I'm Fred Hughes, and this is the next chapter. And we're back and still talking to Marisa Wolf. And we heard her talk about how she became, sort of reached the pinnacle, what a bunch of us authors want to reach, of being published by a traditional publisher, and touched on Bureau 42 after, talked about it after, Marisa talked about, you get to this point in her career by saying yes to every opportunity, and then reaching out and finding people to help you succeed, reach those. And we're going to talk about a different series, not sci-fi, her Hit World series that she is working with William Webb in his group. So why don't you tell us about what you've written in this series and exactly what the series is about?
Yes. So Hit World is one of those urban fantasy universes where anything goes, just about. So it starts with murder, legalized murder, or murderalized. I'm not sure what I was trying to say there, but it starts with legalized murder, and then it goes deeper into magic and interdimensional shenanigans. And a couple of years ago, Bill was putting together this You Pay We Slay anthology for Hit World. He and Larry Hoy are the creators of the universe. And they asked me to contribute a story. But then before I did that, Bill also asked if I would be interested in running a spin-off of the Hit World universe called Valkyries that would mostly focus on female assets, being, badasses who kick ass. And I have a strong interest in female characters who are awesome and are not the stereotypical strong female character, because those are exhausting. But like actual women who are competent and good at what they do and are also women. So I jumped on that opportunity. And we have a multi-year storyline planned out. I have a number of incredible authors that I get to work with. And the first thing we did was an anthology called the Valkyries Initiative, which I have in this room because Casey was also in that anthology, but I do not have within reach. But it is purple, and as you might be able to tell, I really enjoy purple. And it is gorgeous, and it is full of, it's 15 stories from incredible authors, men and women, because I'm equal opportunity. But their main characters are all women. And they're all women who are interesting, and they're human, and they are characters. I lied to you. They're not all human. Some of them are literal Valkyries from other dimensions. But the Valkyries spin-off universe began with that anthology. And then William Allen Webb and I did a story that came out this March called The Spider, which sets up the big issue that the Valkyries are facing. And then over the last couple of weeks, I wrapped up my solo novel with my solo Valkyrie, Bryn, who is the director of the Valkyries Initiative. So it's urban fantasy, it's snarky, it's silly, it's action-packed, it's if things aren't exploding or being shot at, just wait a couple pages, they will be. There's magic, there's shenanigans. It's a really fun series. The next two books are also already done and turned in. So we're gonna have a good number of books coming out this year, and then more planned for next year. And then Bill and Larry are also running their Hit World books. So every month you get a Hit World book. Every other month it's Hit World proper, and the opposite alternating months it is Valkyries proper, improper. I'm gonna say it's Valkyries improper. There is some language in those books. But yeah, so that is Valkyries. I am so pumped about it. The next two books, after mine comes out late July, you have an incredible book from Melissa Olthoff that I have been like chomping at the bit to share with the world. And then an equally incredible one from Matt Novotny. And then next year you'll have more books that I can't tell you about because contracts haven't been signed, but by equally incredible authors. And just we've got some really cool adventures coming.
So we talked about how to say yes, and you shared, and this is sort of going to segue into your 4-HU stuff.
Yeah.
which we've talked a little bit about with Bureau 42, but how you you've co-written with a lot of people,
I have.
co-written
Yeah.
a lot of books in the 4-HU with a lot
Hmm.
of different people.
Yep.
So let's start talking about that. We may have to go carry it on past the break, but still, I mean, that's a majority of your work right now, isn't it?
Hmm.
I
It
mean,
is. Yeah.
and I'm probably short, but I know of at least 6 books you've co-written in the 4-HU.
Yep. You were spot on for 4-H-U. Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk about them. And obviously these people read your short story and said, yes, I want to write with this person.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk about those experiences and how do you co-write with another author that maybe they're more experienced than you, maybe they're
Hmm.
not as experienced as you. So
Yeah.
how do you manage that, and how do you divide responsibilities?
Yes. So it's been different for every project, not even every co-author, but every project. So I got started as a published author thanks to the fabulous Casey Uzell. She did a short story for the very first Four Horsemen. Yeah, look at those. The first Four Horsemen anthology. Chris Kennedy, Mark Wandry, the creators of the universe, the whole universe, they loved it and they asked her to write a novel. And she said, yes. And because her schedule was very packed at the time, she said, "Can I bring in a friend to co-write with me?" And they were like, "Okay." So I submitted a short story to prove that I could hang, and they were moderately more enthusiastic. And then I met them at a convention. You'll see this is a trend in my life. And I told them a story about how I was headbutted by an alligator. And at the end of that story, they were very enthusiastic about my joining the Four Horsemen universe. Because as Mark has said, after that level of storytelling, we figured you could tell a hell of a story, and I really hope I lived up to that. So Casey and I wrote the first 3 Depic novels, the Cat Assassins. They are the universe's deadliest assassins because cats, right? So that was Assassin, Hunter, and Ally. And for the first one, and I feel like we leveled up together in each book. So the first one we just kind of divided and conquered. We also replotted that book 3 times. I can tell that story to folks later if they're interested. But we would get so excited plotting that we would not write anything down. And then we would have to replot. So that happened 3 times. It's fine. But we just split characters down the middle and kind of wrote our own scenes and then had a couple of overlapping scenes that we wrote together. We called it fan fiction style. Like it's because it's how we knew each other, was writing fan fiction together for a good 20 plus years. So, with her, it's easy because I've been writing with her for so long, and we joke that we're brain twins. So once we have outlined together, it's really just kind of finding the time when we have to like say no to more new good ideas. Because we'll start brainstorming. We'll be like, oh, and what if I did this? Oh, and then what if I did this? And oh, what if that happened? And that is incredible. Up until you get, towards the end of your
500
book, you can only add so
pages
many
long.
things. Yeah, yeah. Um, yes. So the other 2 books, we were both working full time, and we were definitely in different countries for one of them, and wildly different time zones for both. And I mostly she writes very disciplined. Like she writes and then she writes and then she writes, and I wait and I wait and I wait, and then I explode into action and write everything in like 6 weeks. So we divided chunks of the book, but because of the way I write, we had more overlap in some parts and less overlap in others. But I'd still say it's about half and half. Um, with others, so I've written with 3 people in the 4-HU. So the other 2 are Chris Kennedy and Mark Wandry, the creators of the universe. And those were very different processes, but super fun. So we started off, Mark and I started off dividing out characters the way I had with Casey. But then we just started picking up where the other one left off. And we both wrote both characters and everything blurred, and that was Night Song. Yeah. And we're really excited to write that second book next year. It turned out so much fun. And I feel like our voices blended way better than I thought they would, because Mark is just this like incredible action, space battle, cool stuff is happening, and also very good at like the snarky comments. And I feel like I'm a very dialogue, character heavy writer, and he made me write some of the battles because he was like, "No, you can't use me as a crutch. You're gonna have to do it yourself." And it was awesome because I knew I had him there to punch it up if it needed punching up. But it was just really great teamwork, and I enjoyed it so much. And then Chris and I had so much fun writing together. We wrote 2 books in 6 weeks. So we got into it intending to write 1 book, and he was like, "Hey, I've been thinking about writing this book. Do you want to do that?" And of course, I said yes. We had so much fun. We
And
wrote
both of
the
you are
2.
known for cranking words out too.
So, fun fact, I don't think I was before this. Like, this is when I leveled up that way because Chris, I'm competitive in like a fun way. And Chris is real good at the fun trash talk. And so he'd be like, "All right, well, I added 3,000 words to the manuscript today." And I'd be like, okay, here's 4,000. And so he'd be like, all right. So the next day he'd be like, "Here's 5." And so we would just keep.
When we come back from the break, we'll talk about this some more. I'm Fred Hughes, and this is the next chapter. We're back from the break, and we're still talking to Marisa, and she was telling us about writing with what the people who write for him refer to him as the factory boss,
Yeah.
Chris Kennedy, and how Chris is well known for just cranking words out. And you were telling us how he helped you level that ability up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that really paid off recently, friends, because I had my first 12,000 word day a couple of weeks ago. Which to be fair, I don't think I will do often, but I don't think I would have been able to do without that 6 weeks of writing 2 novels with Chris Kennedy. So it was super helpful. But yeah, writing with people, I have been incredibly lucky in my co-authors, whether like Fred was saying, whether they are far more experienced than I am, about the same level of experienced, coming up and working on their own craft. I have 2 more co-authors. I've also written with William Allen Webb, and in the near future, recent past, I have written with a rising star, Charlie Cox. She is amazing, and that was super fun. And soon I will be working with an established superstar in David Weber. So, um, the quality and talent and awesomeness of the people I've gotten to work with is just amazing. And like I said, you level up with every project. Every project looks different. Who's working on what, who's doing what, how you're splitting it up. But the end result is always the goal is always something really satisfying for readers, where they get the best of both authors. So super fun.
So, not to reveal anything that you can't reveal, have you started writing with David yet? Doing anything
I
with David?
haven't.
Oh, okay.
No, we are still in our planning stages, and I had a lot of homework to do, which, oh no, my poor life. I had to read all these awesome books, and many of them were books I had read, just with a different eye, with a
Right.
fan
Now,
eye, with
now you're writing, I have to write this character now.
Yeah, like let me go back and look at all of these amazing things he did with Honor Harrington. So yeah, so it's been more homework, but really the best homework. So I've been rereading all the Honorverse books, rereading some of his other things. I've also been, he didn't ask me to do this, but I got really enthusiastic. So he mentioned one of his best tips for writing space battles is reading a lot about submarine warfare, because it's as similar as we can get on our planet, right? So I've been reading a lot of nonfiction books, mostly around World War II, but about submariners specifically, and that's been really fun. So we are in the planning stages of all of our work. We have a couple of really, really, really cool projects coming up. So the rest of my year is going to be pretty packed in a really good way. So I am now at the place where I can't say yes to every opportunity, which is goes against my very nature, but for a really good reason. So
Well, if, all you have to do is say, well, I'm sorry, I've already committed to David Weber. So,
right. Yeah,
and that's
I
like,
really
oh,
have.
okay, in that case, I understand why you're not
Yeah,
writing with me.
yeah.
And oh, by the way, I know
Mhm.
something about submarines, so if you need a
Oh,
reference.
Do you like how I dropped that casually into
Oh,
conversation with
I
us?
didn't realize that, but
You get
yeah,
it?
and you know how to get a hold of me. So, got about 4 minutes left.
Okay.
What are you working on right now, and where can people come and see you? I mean, we
Yeah,
just did one convention, and I'm sure you have more scheduled. I assume you're going to be at Dragon Con.
I am. I will be at Dragon Con. It's one of my favorite places in the world.
So let's, tell the viewers about, what you got working and what's coming up for you and where they can come and find
Yeah.
you if they want to get
Yeah.
an autograph or buy a book from you or whatever.
Or hear my ridiculous stories in prison. Yes, come see me. So yeah, I'll be at Dragon Con this Labor Day weekend in Atlanta, Georgia. It is 85,000 of your closest friends and family. All of us fellow nerds just descend on the city. It's amazing. In October, I will be at Deep South Con in Helen, Georgia, which I'm very excited about. That's it for this year. Next year, I'll probably have some more cons. I will put those on my website for sure. And the next projects are, like I said, I have my year of getting to work with David Weber up ahead. And then my real big focus is the urban fantasy, the Valkyries. So to me, so many Valkyrie novels, and I am so excited about all of them. Oh yeah, that was true last year. Those dates
Yeah,
are no longer
yeah.
true. Sorry, those are my unupdated dates, but you will find updated ones on that page in the near future because thank you for reminding me to do that. Those are really important. Um, so yeah, be head down writing, 2 more conventions. You can also find me on the internet streets. If you go to my website, you can join my mailing list. It's once a month, so I will not bombard you. I send lots of gifts, like the moving clip art, not like presents, but you do get presents. You get 4 free short stories if you join my mailing list. So then you can definitely keep in touch and hear my ridiculousness on a regular basis. So
And you also periodically appear with certain other female authors
I
for
do.
for shenanigans.
Mhm.
So why don't you tell the people about that and where they could possibly find either a new broadcast or a past broadcast?
Yes. If you go to the Chris Kennedy Publishing YouTube page, which really you can just Google that and it will come up, you will see a ton of different interviews, including some with our fabulous host, Fred Hughes. But you will find our semi-regular podcast, The Feral Ladies. And those feral ladies are me, Casey Izell, Melissa Olthoff, who is another incredible author. And it's usually just us having shenanigans, often with special guests. We recently had Gail Carriger come and join us. We've got some other special guests on tap. It's super fun. It's really just us being silly on the internet. You can also check out Last Call, which is when authors have beverages and giggle about things and various other shows on that website. I allegedly will start my own YouTube page at some point, but it is a slow work in process. Mostly I come to be shenaniganating with other people. Yep, that's us, feral ladies. So
And if you want to learn about what these women are working on
mhm.
and what they think about their characters and other things, it's a good place to go and reference and find out, ooh, I like what she says on the, and if she writes characters
Yeah.
half as interesting as she is, then those are books I want to read.
That's awesome. Thank you. You know what? That is the goal. I want people to find my books as entertaining as many people find me. Not everybody, but some people.
No, different strokes for different folks,
Hmm. You're exactly right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's been so fun, Marissa.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, last word. We got 30 seconds.
If you are an aspiring author and this is a thing you want to do, one, go ahead and shoot me a message. I will happily share anything I can. But two, know that the only good writing advice is the advice that works for you. People will get up here all day, every day, and say the things that work for them. That is important. You take the pieces that work for you. That is the best writing advice.
Outstanding advice from an outstanding author. Thank you, Marissa. And that's it for this week's show. I'm Fred Hughes. This is the next chapter.